I'd like to introduce him. I hope, James, I know I'm going to say your last name wrong, so I apologize in advance. But our keynote speaker this morning is James Vanden Heuvel. Did I get it right? Awesome. James is the lead camp licensing consultant for the camp licensing unit of the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education Advancement and Potential, which is MiLEAP. So he will probably describe in better detail to you what he does than I will, but I know that he's the big cheese who's in charge of all of our camping consultants, which we tend to call inspectors. And so it's wonderful to have him with us this morning, and he can share with us what the state of Michigan is looking for in successful camping campgrounds and camping programs. And once again, James, I really appreciate you spending time with us this morning, and I don't want to waste a minute of your time. So I'm going to turn it over to you. And
thank you. Thank you, Winnie. I appreciate that very much. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I have some prepared remarks that I want to read and then share with you. And then I imagine that we can have a few minutes to open it up for any questions that you have about licensing. So, thank you for inviting me to talk with you today about camp licensing in Michigan. It's always a bit of a risk to invite a regulatory worker to be a keynote speaker because the audience wonders, what's he going to talk about, right? Well, will he talk about incidents that occurred in the past and lessons to be learned? Will he talk about the do's and don'ts and what happens if you don't? Will they relate to the audience with personal anecdotes when they worked at the organizational level like you're all doing now? Or are we going to read the rules to all of you? Well, Winnie said I had about 20 minutes or so, so I thought I'd pull out a copy of our licensing rules, turn to page 1, and start with rule 11101 definitions. I think we can get through all these rules in the next 20 minutes. I'm not going to bore you with that. However, just kidding. We're gonna have an opportunity together to just spend some time to share some kind of bigger pictures around camp licensing here. So it's good to have this opportunity. I don't always get a chance to share to larger camp groups like yourself about how important your work is, regardless of the role that you play in camp. Whether you're the camp director, the volunteer maintenance staff, counselor, food service, lifeguard, health officer, each staff member plays a critical role in the successful operation of a camp. As of recent, I work with the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential, MiLEAP, we call it for short. This department actually is new in name only. The functions of our department have occurred for many years in different departments across the state, but recently the specific offices have been brought together under one department. As a result, new connections, new efficiencies, and new opportunities have been realized. The camp licensing unit is nested in the MiLEAP office now. Personally, I work as the lead camp inspector. We call it a consultant for kind of softer reasons for the department, but our camp licensing unit regulates children's camps throughout the state. I've been a camp consultant for 14 years and have been in youth development and education field for over 30 years in positions ranging from a camp counselor to program administrator, school counselor, and clinical therapist. I believe camps play an important role in the flourishing of individuals, families, and communities. My focus today is to explain how I see camp's purposes are demonstrated through safe and healthy practices. In other words, safe and healthy practices lead to successful outcomes in camp's purposes. At the onset, let me explain what I mean by camps. Camps are not just physical spaces. They're sanctuaries of growth, community, and discovery. Whether nested within towering pines or beside a calm lake, or perched atop mountains, camps serve as crucibles for personal development and collective enrichment. They are environments where individuals, especially children, have the opportunity to explore, learn, forge bonds that last a lifetime. All this sounds like information you would put on a camp brochure. In reality, I'm sure camps define themselves with these types of values and purposes. Camps also showcase their unique physical spaces like sleeping quarters, sleep activity centers, acreage, and high adventure activity areas. In Michigan, we actually define a children's camp in a statute called Public Act 116. A children's camp means a residential day trooper travel camp that provides care and supervision and is conducted in a natural environment for more than 4 children, apart from their parents, relatives, or legal guardians, for 5 or more days in a 14-day period. Additionally, the statute and rules define words within this particular definition, like residential camp, day camp, relatives, and natural environment. The department regulates approximately 1,000 camp licenses. Each camp in Michigan, and in this case today, your camps, are unique physical spaces with comprehensive staff and maybe even serve different purposes. Rule 400.1110910 says, a camp shall ensure that the program content for the pre-camp training is in writing and includes all of the following information: the camp's philosophy, objectives, policies, and operating procedures. A camp's philosophies and objectives are the camp's purposes. So what exactly are the purposes of camp? At their core, camps are designed to foster holistic personal growth and well-being. They provide opportunities for self-discovery, where campers can uncover their passions, their talents, and values. Camps instill resilience, teamwork, and leadership skills, preparing campers to navigate life's challenges with grace and fortitude. Camps cultivate a deep appreciation for nature and the outdoors, nurturing a sense of stewardship towards our planet. In essence, camps aspire to shape campers into empowered, compassionate, and conscientious members of society. So, I had a chance to visit your camp website. While I enjoyed looking at the activities photos of water sports, field games, and fun and friendship, I found your camp's organization's principles, which I would say are your specific purposes. I imagine you all know these by memory, maybe, but I'll mention a few that I found on the website. You have a specific principle around grace and generosity. You recognize the sacredness of creation. You believe that all are called. You pursue peace and shalom. And you acknowledge the blessings of community. These well-defined principles, both the purposes as well as the intended outcomes, are for your Community of Christ camps. All Michigan camps have specific purposes. So how do camp organizations ensure that these noble purposes are realized? The answer lies in their unwavering commitment to safety and health practices. Safety practices encompass everything from rigorous risk management and emergency procedures to vigilant supervision and adherence to industry operational standards. Camps must ensure the facilities are maintained to the standards of fire safety and environmental health conditions, that staff are adequately trained and certified, and that high adventure protocols are regularly reviewed and updated to reflect the industry safety standards. In Michigan, the minimum safety and health standards are outlined in the camp licensing rules. That's this document that I showed you. It's important for every camp administrator to understand the minimum requirements for camp operations and to commit to meeting or exceeding those standards. Camp administrators play a critical role in building a culture mobilized to accomplish the camp's purposes, and therefore must pay attention to minimum safety and health standards that provide the foundation for achieving the stated purpose of your camp. Camp administrators, and I would say all staff, paid or volunteer, have the responsibility to understand the minimum safety and health practices, keeping in mind a few important principles. One important principle is leading by example. It is a cornerstone of effective leadership within the camp community. Your actions speak volumes. And when you prioritize safety and health in your own conduct, you are setting a powerful precedent for others to follow. Whether it's wearing a life jacket when you're out on a watercraft, or demonstrating proper hand hygiene, or engaging in healthy lifestyle choices, our behavior sends a clear message that safety and well-being are non-negotiable priorities. Furthermore, the adage, educate before you regulate, holds relevance within the context of camp administration. Rather than imposing rules and restrictions in a vacuum, we must first empower staff with the knowledge and understanding they need to make informed choices. By providing comprehensive training and workshops on topics ranging from child-mandated reporting training and behavior management, high adventure statements and safety protocols, and mental health awareness and fire orientations, just to name a few, you equip staff with the tools they need to navigate camp experience safely and responsibly. Camp Licensing Unit takes this approach as well. The unit conducts annual on-site inspections for camps throughout Michigan. In those inspections, you will find the camp consultant will take time to provide what we call technical assistance and consultation. These terms have meaning, but basically involve education. Prevention of accident, injury, and illness is critical responsibility of a camp staff, and clear expectations of parents who send their children to camps. Education alone is not sufficient. It must be complemented by robust written policies and procedures that serve as the backbone of your safety and healthy framework. Knowing the policies and procedures inside and out is not just a matter of compliance. It's a matter of accountability and trust. We owe it to our campers, their families, and to staff to uphold the highest standards of diligence and transparency in everything we do. This means regularly reviewing and updating your policies in response to emerging risks and best practices, conducting audits and assessments of your activity areas, and ensuring that everyone within the camp community is fully informed, trained, and is following the policies and procedures. One of the most unique aspects of a camp administrator's job is the opportunity to build culture. Each new session is a chance for a staff and campers to develop a positive culture. To understand culture better, I'm going to use a simple definition. Culture consists of the beliefs and behaviors that are traditionally practiced by a group of people. Positive culture is using the beliefs and behaviors practiced by the group to move towards flourishing of all the people of the group. The invisible relationships of beliefs and behaviors, we'll call it culture, between staff members and campers can be missed by camp administrators who are not attuned to this dynamic. It's important for camp administrators to connect to the culture flow within the camp so as to prevent any challenges before they become significant problems. When the above principles are considered, camp administrators and staff can realize the intended purposes of the camp. Now, I did some national research on this matter about outcomes. And so national camp industry research has looked at 6 general intended outcomes of camps. Those transformative experiences that shape the lives of campers long after they've left the campfires and the forest trails. The research indicates that campers have realized the following benefits over time. One of the primary benefits and outcomes of camp is to instill the participants with an affinity towards nature. By immersing individuals in the wonders of the great outdoors, campers awaken a sense of wonder and appreciation for the natural world. Whether it's hiking through forests, stargazing under the night sky, or paddling across lakes, these experiences forge lasting connections to the earth and inspire a commitment to environmental stewardship. Another camp outcome is the cultivation of the willingness to try new things. Camps provide a safe and supportive environment for individuals to step outside their comfort zone, take risks, and embrace new challenge. Whether it's conquering a high ropes or learning a new skill or simply making new friends, these experiences foster a spirit of curiosity and adventure and growth that extends far beyond the campfire. Independence is another key outcome that camps seek to nurture. Away from the familiar comforts of home, campers have the opportunity to develop essential life skills, such as decision-making, problem-solving, and self-reliance. Whether it's navigating the wilderness with a map and compass or managing their own daily routines, campers learn to trust in their abilities to embrace the freedom of self-discovery. Camps are also fertile ground for cultivating social awareness and empathy. Through shared experiences, collaborative activities, and meaningful conversations, campers develop a deeper understanding of themselves and others. They learn to communicate effectively and resolve conflicts constructively, and embrace diversity with open hearts and minds. These interpersonal skills form the foundation of a strong, compassionate community, both within and beyond the camp gates. Friendship, perhaps, is one of the most cherished outcomes of camp experiences. They blossom among laughter, camaraderie, and shared adventures of camp life. The bonds forged through the campfire, on the trail, and in the cabins endure long after the summer ends, providing a source of support, joy, and belonging that's beyond time and distance. Finally, camps aim to cultivate grit, resilience in the face of adversity. Whether it's weathering a sudden storm or overcoming a physical challenge or navigating interpersonal dynamics, participants learn to persevere with courage and determination. They discover the setbacks are not roadblocks, but rather opportunities for growth, strengthening their resolve and resilience in the process. In essence, the intended 6 outcomes of camps extend far beyond the confines of our physical spaces. They encompass what it means to be human. By embracing safe and healthy practices with unwavering dedication, we are not only safeguarding the well-being of our campers and staff, but also nurturing the seeds of curiosity, courage, and compassion that will shape the leaders and change makers of tomorrow. In conclusion, camp leaders need to understand the interconnection between positive culture, camp purposes, and safe and healthy practices, which produce the intended outcomes of a successful camp program. One way to look at this is through a metaphor of a fire. It's like the 3 elements of fire, which needs to be heat, fuel, and oxygen. The elements need to all be there to burn. Removal of any one of these 3 things will not produce the campfire. The same is true for positive culture, clear camp purposes, and safe and healthy practices. Removal of any one of these will result in a camp not producing the intended outcomes. On behalf of the Michigan Camp Licensing Unit, I want to thank you for your time today, your commitment to campers and safe and healthy camp programs. And I wish you the best in your preparations and as you look forward to this coming summer. And I look forward to hearing about the great camp experiences that you're going to have with the campers this summer. With that, I would be willing to take a few questions about licensing matters or any questions about anything I said today, and open it up if that's something that you want. If not, I wish you the best in the rest of your day.
Thank you, James. I couldn't have said any of that better. And I appreciate that you even took the time to look at our enduring principles on our website. That really touches me. Is there anybody here who has a question for James before he needs to go? Or anybody at Blue Water or at Sanford? Just speak up. I always have lots of questions for James, as he knows. He or our specific camp consultant, I frequently contact them, and I am very appreciative at how open they are to help. And since I've been working with our camps for, I think, about 8 or 9 years now, 6 or 7 years, that I feel like there's been a transformation in myself and also in our camp directors, that we no longer look at our camp inspectors as that scary person that's going to show up and try to shut us down, because that is not your intended purpose. As many of them have said to us, and we've had a couple different ones over the years, that we want you to be successful. And that's why I like the term consultant instead of inspector, because I've only found them to be helpful. And when they have found areas we can improve, they're giving us the opportunity and the space to make those adjustments. So I have been very appreciative of that over the years. Any questions? We have our lifeguard here. No questions? She's just giggling and smiling. I have a question, and this might not be an appropriate question to ask you. Are you, number one, are you yourself going out and inspecting campgrounds, or
Yeah.
you do have a territory?
Yeah, so we have a team of seasonal camp inspectors that we have. I kind of grew up in the ranks as a seasonal camp inspector, and then took the full-time year-round role. There's really one lead role, and I take that for the fall, winter, spring, and summer. One of the tasks through our audit we became more attuned to is consistency across the state for our camp inspectors. And as your organization will attest, I'm sure, having Park of the Pines up in the north and Blue Water over in the east and Sanford in the southeast, you know, and I've had the fortunate opportunity to be at each of your wonderful camps over the years. We have seen that one challenge is making sure that camp inspectors and consultants are all on the same page in the way that they implement the meaning of the rules. And so we know that is always an issue when you have one rule set and then people reading those rules and trying to apply those in those various camp environments. So I'm fortunate if we indeed staff at our full level, which we are hiring 2 staff right now. We have one potential backfill that we're doing as well, is to get out into the field with our consultants and do what I, ride along with them and ensure that we're following the rule as close as possible. And I'll be doing a lot of training because we have 3 new staff, and we brought in 3 new staff last year. So over half of our team is within a year or 2 old as camp consultants. So there's a lot of training and support services that I'll provide. Even beyond that, though, we do have high volume in the Western Michigan area, which is where I reside. And so I do hold a caseload as well in the Western area. But the past couple of years, I've been able to get out each day in the summer to ride along with consultants in other areas. So I do try to get out to all the different camps that we have in Michigan. So, yeah, so you're likely to have the same camp consultants, I'm thinking, as our workloads are getting mapped out for this summer. We have a camp consultant training coming up next weekend where we all gather and spend a weekend together looking at our rules and developing our workloads. So you'll hear shortly after that, you'll see on the map on our website who's within each area, who your go-to consultant will be. In the interim, if you have questions, I'm always available, as Wendy knows how to get a hold of me, and others do as well. So
imagine if you're nervous about your camp consulting showing up and he shows up with James in the passenger seat to have 2 camp consultants have a look at what you're doing.
I'd love to see. I have personal goals to see as many camps in Michigan as I possibly can, and so it's been wonderful to see And again, we do practices, educate before you regulate. We try to really build a culture of improvement, and obviously we have rule and law, but we're using our best skills to help programs continue to flourish.
We
James,
always
we've
try
seen
to, oh, go ahead.
the law might be changing. There's been some bills introduced to possibly update camp licensing. Do you know where that's in the process or when you expect votes to take place?
Excellent question. There is a statute proposed bill that's in the Senate right now, and that proposed bill was an outcome of the audit. And I'm not sure if you guys were all aware that camp licensing went through an audit a few years back and had some findings. Just like camps in your field will have us come through and audit you, we also have a department in the state that audits us to make sure we're following state law. It's the Office of Auditor General. And they had some findings, and so one of those findings was to help fix some aspects of a statute. And in that aspect, there was an opportunity to pull camp licensing out of the current statute, which is called the Child Care Organizations Act, and have a standalone camp licensing statute. And that would have some positive outcomes, one being that it would make the statute easier to understand, quite honestly, because the full statute, Child Care Organizations Act, is a very involved statute with multiple different organization subtypes. So, but that bill is currently in the state Senate. It's went through a committee hearing, and then it's now sitting, waiting to be brought to the floor. And as an agency, we're really not involved in timelines with any movement along those types of things because it's a legislative process. So we're separate from that. So I don't have a specific timelines on when that bill would move through the Senate. But once it's, revised, passed, or moved through Senate, then it would go over to the House, and it would have to go through a similar process in the House with hearings and committees and things. So there's timelines that are all, legislative that are outside of my control on that. So all I say to camps that ask is just stay tuned. If you haven't looked at the proposed law, take a look at it. It's on the Senate website, legislative website. You can find that bill, SB 0692, I think it is, if my memory serves me right. Senate Bill 692, and review it, and be an informed citizen on that process. So that's all I can really speak to on that process.
Thank you.
Any other questions for James? James, we always try to invite our camp consultant to have lunch or dinner with us when they show up to do our inspection. And I'm wondering how many grilled cheese and tomato soup dinners you've had.
Well, I've had it at Blue Water, and I think I've had it at Park of the Pines. So there's no, I actually, if my memory serves me right, I got a cinnamon roll over by you guys once that was just outstanding. I'm not sure if was that at Blue Water or was that at Park?
I believe that was here when you and, oh my gosh, I've forgotten his name, our camp consultant,
Yeah,
Roger Elkins, David, yes, David Martins. And my husband is a retired baker. So those who come to gatherings here often experience the cinnamon roll euphoria.
I remember that, and that was a few years ago. So I'm sure I've had cinnamon rolls since, but that one stood out. So camp licensing, we're not to accept gifts, meals, rewards, awards, or anything to that matter, to avoid any conflict of interest. And we always have to offer to pay for things if we were offered them.
And they have always, yes.
That's part of our policy in our state government, just so there's no, oh, they're getting favors like cinnamon rolls. And I offered to pay, but I don't think I could have, truly paid the full amount of what that thing is worth to me. So, but anyway, thank you for your invitation. And I'm sure if we're around during a mealtime, It's one of the fun aspects of seeing camp meal, climate and culture. It's really always interesting to see how camps in their various, aspects meet kids where they're at. And meal times at camps is a very fun environment. So we do like to see that.
Ruckusy at times. I
Could be.
think that our lifeguard has a question. She's cozied up next to me, so I'm going to give her my chair.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Can you elaborate just a little bit on when a consultant inspects the waterfront, what specifically, or maybe just a quick overview of the most important things to worry about having correct?
Yeah. Well, aquatics is an area of high risk, right? So we call that a high risk activity area. And so there are very specific rules in the licensing rule book that speak to aquatics. And so if your aquatic staff members haven't read those, I would say direct them to the licensing rules that speak to aquatic procedures, aquatic staff, how things are to be implemented in the waterfront. Some of the most common things that we talk about are aquatic buddy boards, accounting systems, how you keep track of who's in the water in the waterfront area or in the aquatic activity and who's not, and to have emergency procedures to deal with when those accounting systems don't measure up, when they don't account. So we'll look at the general layout of the aquatic area. We'll look at the specific activity areas that are aquatic. So where's the watercraft activity taking place? There's rules about separating swimming from other aquatic type activities. We'll look at interviews of aquatic supervisors. And I too was a lifeguard like a aquatic supervisor at one time in my life. So when the inspector asked me questions, what did they ask me? Well, they asked me, what's my accounting system? What do I do when the numbers don't measure up? What's the emergency procedures? How often am I training my staff on those emergency procedures? How do I ensure that the staff are always attentive and on task, doing their job at the right time and in the right way? Are they prepared with the equipment that's required? So those are questions that we'll look to, and we'll look for evidence that is indeed what's happening. So, there's a list of the types of required equipment. There's the 10 or minutes or less regular account for all the campers in we call that the buddy call maybe, or an account of all the number of kids that should be in the swimming area, that there's a formal way to account for them at least every 10 minutes when you're in your own waterfront area. Or if you're at a remote waterfront, meaning you've gone to maybe a lake, I don't know if you have other field trips to other water bodies, but even in those site-specific waterfront areas, do you have systems in place at those locations? We have camps that go to, they're not at Lake Michigan, but they drive to Lake Michigan to go do an aquatic activity. And so how do you do aquatic safety at Lake Michigan, right? Or Lake Huron and, or some other body of water. So our rules contemplate that. And we ask that you have written procedures and that you follow those written procedures related to aquatics. Generally, thank goodness, we see very few aquatic emergencies that result in injury or death in camps in Michigan. So that's a testimony to I think the licensing rules and the application that camps and the seriousness that camps take around those aquatic procedures and activities. So that's really great. But one of the key items that we would want to see is that there's swim tests, that there's a process to determine the swimming ability of the camper early in the swimming process, so that the camper is designated into a swimming classification that would ensure that the camper is not placed into a swimming situation that's beyond their ability. Okay. So our rules kind of talk through each of those specifics, and that's a good thing for the aquatic supervisor to review, read, understand, and look at your own policies and how they align.
Thank you. I will make sure that Natalie is directed to the state policies and also our director's manual policies. And
Great.
she did a good job last year, so I'm sure she's just wanting to refresh her memory.
Yep, it's good.
Any other questions, either from here or at the other two campgrounds? Well, hearing none, I want to thank you again, James. This was really great. We've recorded it, so I plan to share it with all of the camp directors, and I think I will also suggest to them that they play it during their camp staff training before their camps. Your information was excellent, so thank you for spending time with us today. No cinnamon rolls here today, but thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, just to make us want them.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and take care, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.